So we got the cam bearings installed. You can kind of see them in there. Make sure your oil holes line up. First half of the main bearing shell's in. Now we're gonna set the crank back in again. All right, so to start, I didn't show the mounting and torquing sequence, but I did put plastic gauge on, all the mains, dry, clean bearings, fully lubed ARP fasteners. And if you can see, try to get this to focus. We're sitting at 0.003 on all of them, which according to what I can find online, I'm looking at crankshaft manufacturers. I can't find a lot of specific stuff that says anything different for here, but that a good rule of thumb is 0.001 for every inch of crank main diameter. This is a 3-inch, so it should be 0.003. You can actually run it up a little bit looser, and you can control your oil pressure with the oil weight. This is something that, depending on the engine, some guys run tighter, some guys run looser. I'm just shooting for the base recommendation from like Ford Racing Performance Parts and K1 crankshafts, which say this should be 0.003, which is what I'm reading on every single one of these with plastic gauge, as best as that is. So now crank's going to come out, get cleaned, make sure that plastic gauge is off, get it off of the top bearing shells that it was compressing against. Then we're going to get some assembly lube and put it back in again and make sure that she spins. All right, now we're going to throw some assembly lube on these bearing shells. Get ready to set the crankshaft in. This is going to be to check for any binding. The crank should spin freely by hand once all the caps are fully torqued. So that's where we're going to go over and check now. Now we're going to set the crank in nice and gentle. Make sure we don't nick the crank or damage any of the bearings. Now we're going to put the main caps on, starting off with cap number 1. It has an arrow, faces towards the front of the engine. We're going to give it a little tap down, make sure that it's seated on there. If you don't do that and you start torquing it down, you'll hear it pop on there. I don't think that's too worrisome, but it's not the best way to do it that I know. So you want to just tap them on there, make sure they're lined up and seated correctly before you start tightening anything down.
Now, ARP recommends torquing these down in a 3-step sequence up to 100 pound-feet. So here I'm going to start off with 50, then we're going to go to 75, and then we'll finish with 100. The moment of truth, that was a big relief to feel it spin so smoothly. So now we're going to go up to that 75 pound-feet and check it again. Still spinning nice and smooth here, so we're going to take it up to 100 pound-feet. Unfortunately, I ran out of space on my camera, so it's going to cut over to the next step.
Okay, so now that we checked that the crank can sit in, main caps can be torqued down, it still spins freely, we have no binding. Took the main caps back off, installed the one-piece rear main seal. You can see the spring goes facing the inside of the engine. With the caps and everything off, it slides in real easy. Make sure it's set against it all the way. Now we're gonna put main caps back on, torque everything down again. Okay, we have the crankshaft in for the final time. Rear main seal is seated. Everything's torqued down to 100 foot-pounds. Still spins by hand. Got the pistons back from the machine shop. They hot tanked the rods and pressed the new pistons on for me. Now we're going to swap out the rod bolts, get it all lubed up, and start popping them onto the crank. All right, so checking the rings, starting off with the top set of rings. Already did that set on that side. Got the rings in, using the piston to square it up in each bore. And then we'll check the gaps. These are gapped from the factory. Should be about 0.022, 0.023. The other side so far is measured 0.023, which according to Wiseco, some other piston manufacturers, that's about the gap that you want to have for a high performance street engine. Everything that I've ever read and known, you want to try to get it perfect, but err on the looser side, because if anything, you just get a little bit of blow by, possible lack of performance. If they're too tight and they lock up, then you're going to start breaking parts and it's really, really bad. All right, so I'm going to go over installing the rings on one of the pistons. It's going to be the same process for everything else. It's a 3-piece oil ring. The ends that are cut off where they come together, that's supposed to go up. I'm gonna put that on first. You're gonna have 2 of these. These are really flimsy and thin. You can walk them down. We'll go to the second ring. Now we're gonna pull this back out. We're gonna go under that control spring and just work it around. It will come out. Go under like that. Then we're gonna do it again to go on top.
pull it down. And the pack is installed. For this second ring, see if you guys can see it. Get it to focus. There you go. Right here it says top. That's gonna go up towards the top. Ring spreading tool. Get that guy in there. Oops. I always pull it in the back so it's kind of seated on, and then as you release the pressure, you pull itself in. Top ring. And see, the top ring doesn't have a mark. Usually if it doesn't have a mark, that means that it can go either way. Same thing, into the spreader tool. Lining up in the back flat. It always says to stagger the piston ring gaps, but these are working right as they're running in the engine. They're gonna actually move around. So it really doesn't matter. But for the sake of starting stuff off, you can have them staggered. I would stagger them, at least I heard, the sides or to the front, just offset from each other. All right, so we got the rings assembled on the pistons. Hopefully in a few days, I will be getting a ring compressor and we will start getting them loaded in. Then we can do some other cleanup. This stuff is from some prep. Let me see if I can find it. Basically, it was a prep cleaner for the block. This is like supposed to be a protective white coating. I'll go ahead and try to scrub it off, make sure that everything's really cleaned. Cam can go in. We have the oil pump, drive shaft, oil pan, pickup tube. That can get ready once the rods are on. Get the cam in, and then I will rent a degree wheel and we'll degree the cam. And most of the short block will then be done, the bottom end done. We have the intake, of course, you guys saw a while back. Actually, almost a year ago now. I got it on Black Friday, or I purchased it on Black Friday last year. Took a while to get shipped. And then we're gonna be looking at ordering heads. Thank you guys for watching. See you on the next one.